Okay, welcome back, everybody. We have been talking about Shema. I think this ought to be. Oh, there's Paul. We can see him now. And Barbara. Yes, good. Right, we were talking about Shema. First of all, let's welcome Yochanan, who's come here all the way from Holland. But eventually, I mean, originally from Holland. So it's very nice to have you here. So we have been talking. This is about week 27 or 28 of the Tefilah Shiur. We started at the beginning, Modeh Ani, in the morning, and we have got as far as the second paragraph of Shema. It's taken us 26, 7, 8 weeks to get there. This is the 6th week we've been talking about the Shema, so we don't go quickly in this shiur, but we do go thoroughly. And we are going to interrupt today to do a couple of things. First thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about times, halachic times, because I promised you that last week. And I forgot, and Johnny helped and reminded me that I'd forgotten. And so we are going to talk about the halachic times. When I say that, Solly's got a blank look, so I'm going to explain what I mean. Halachic times mean, when can you say the Shema? When can you not say the Shema? When can you say Tefilah? What constitutes morning? What constitutes afternoon? When can you daven Shacharis? When can you daven Mincha? These are called halachic times because hours are not hours necessarily, and you'll see in a minute. So we're going to talk about that because Johnny has reminded me that we didn't do it last week. And Frank asked me to talk a little bit tonight about Le David Hashem Ori, which is Psalm 27, which we will start to say on, it depends now. Well, it depends whether you are Nusach Sfard or Nusach Ashkenaz, because if you are Nusach Ashkenaz, you will start to say this on Thursday evening, and it goes all the way through to Hoshana Rabbah, up to and including Hoshana Rabbah. If you have a Nusach Sfard, you will not start this until the following morning, until Friday morning. And we will talk about that as well a little bit. So we're going to, first of all, spend a little bit of time going through the halachic times. And then we're going to talk about the David Hashem Ori. And then at some point in the future, please God, we will return to the Shema and do the third paragraph, because we got as far as the end of the second paragraph. So it's a reasonable place to stop. So we'll start with the halachic times. Now, that is not a newspaper, by the way. Yeah, the Halachic Times. Halachic Times. So, now, time, of course, is extremely important in Jewish life. We spoke about this on Shabbat, actually, didn't we? In the Pirkei Avot Shiur, we were talking about how our whole lives is revolve around the Jewish calendar and the Jewish time. Think about Shabbat. You know, on Friday afternoon, you're looking at your watch and thinking, how long have I got till Shabbat? When have I got to open up the Zoom for Kabbalat Shabbat? And, you know, when have I got to, what time is Shabbat? What time is we got to light candles? What time? And I have to stand up there every week and say what time Shacharit is and what time Mincha is, because we've got to know everything is. Now, if you are not bothered about time, so you have Shacharit every week, 9 o'clock, and you have Mincha every week at 5 o'clock. Doesn't matter whether it's in the afternoon or the evening. That's not how it works, because we live in, unless you actually live on the equator, you're living at times, you live in a place where time changes in terms of the clock versus the hours of light in the day. So whereas we are used to working with a situation of the clock, 12 o'clock, midnight, 1 minute past 12, then you are in the next day. Okay, that's AM. 1 minute past midday is PM. That's simple. Doesn't matter what time nightfall is. You know, for instance, in England, where we come from, in Manchester in the north, Shabbat comes in the middle of December at 3:35. Right now, 3:35 is the middle of the afternoon, but it's not. It's nighttime already because it's dark, etc. So the Jewish calendar is dictated, and not just the calendar, but the whole of Jewish life is dictated by let's get this right, by the Earth's rotation around the sun. Okay, in other words, by the length of the day. So whereas our clock is fixed, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, etc., and we know that an hour is 60 minutes, in halachic times, an hour is not necessarily 60 minutes. Some time of the year, an hour can be as much as 72 minutes. It can be as little as 48 minutes. Now, how do we work out what an hour is? A halachic hour. It's very simple. You take the number of minutes or hours of daylight. Okay? So let's say here in Israel, daylight begins at, let's say, 4 o'clock in the morning. Let's say 4 o'clock in the morning, and let's say it gets dark at 7 o'clock at night. So 7 o'clock, I've probably given myself a difficult calculation there. Let's call it 8 o'clock at night, okay? So 4 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock at night is 16 hours, okay? 4 o'clock in the morning, it gets light. 8 o'clock in the evening, it gets dark in the summertime, right? 16 hours of daylight. A halachic hour is 1/12 of that. So in the summer, a halachic hour is 1/12 of 16. What's the 12th of 16? 1.25, no? Is that right? Who's got a calculator? 16 divided by 12. Huh? 16 divided by 12. 16 divided by 12 is 1.333. Yes, okay, you're right. 1 1/3.
1.333.
1.333. Thank you. So, a halachic hour in the summer here in Israel, let's say it gets light at 4 and dark at 8 in the evening, is 1.33 hours. In other words, 60 minutes and a third, 80 minutes. Okay? Okay, wherever you happen to be, which is why Shabbat comes in at a different time in the north as it does in the south, because the hours are different. And we'll come to it in a sec. So the first concept is a halachic hour. It's 1/12 of the daylight. Just very quickly, in the winter, it gets light at, say, 7 in the morning, and it gets dark at, say, 5 in the afternoon. You've got 10 hours of light. So 10 divided by 12 is whatever that is, 50 minutes. Okay, so a halachic hour in the winter is 50 minutes. In the summer, it's 80 minutes. So you can see the concept here is that time moves with the seasons in terms of the hours. So that's a halachic hour. That's the first thing you need to understand is a halachic hour. Now, there are certain times taking it a day, certain points in the day which have significance. The first of these is called Alot HaShachar, which literally means, what's Alot?
Going up of the
HaShachar.
The morning.
Of the morning, going up of the morning. In other words, dawn. Okay, Alot HaShachar is dawn. When you see the first rays of the sun in the east, is that right? Yeah, it does rises in the east here in the southern hemisphere and everywhere else, right? A bit of the northern hemisphere, I mean. So I don't know why I said that. Okay, so the sun rises in the east. When you see those first rays, that is called Alot HaShachar. That is dawn. That is when, halachically, morning begins. Now, we don't have to actually sit there and watch it because people have worked this out. They used to, of course. They used to do it in all sorts of different places. Everyone had their own place. In the 4th century CE, Hillel, not the Hillel we were talking about in the Pirkei Avot Shiur, a different Hillel, several generations later, worked it all out. The calendar was fixed, and we know exactly when Alot HaShachar and all the other times we're going to talk about is in all different places in the world. So you can go online, for example, and put in Zmanim, which means times. Zmanim, Netanya, and it will tell you on every single day of the year what time is Alot HaShachar, what time is dawn. So the first important time period of the morning is Alot HaShachar, dawn. Okay, now that is the time when a mitzvah, which can only be done by day, can start. Okay, so you cannot do, for example, Tkiyat Shofar. You cannot fulfill your mitzvah of listening to the shofar at night. You ever thought about that? Why don't we blow the shofar on Rosh Hashanah night? Because the mitzvah is to blow it. It's called Yom Truah. Yom Truah, a day of Truah. It's not called Laila Truah. Brit Milah. You can't do a Brit Milah at night. Why not? Okay, that's a good answer. Practical reasons, you can't see, and you need to be able to see what you're doing. But actually, the scriptural proof for that is that you have to do a Brit when? Yom Hashmini. Yom Hashmini, on the 8th day. Okay, so there are certain mitzvot that can only be done during the day. Lulav is another one, by the way.
Yom HaShishi starts on Friday night, though. Let me see.
Yom HaShishi.
Doesn't start in the morning. That Friday morning.
Yom Shishi begins on Thursday night, but Yom HaShishi, depends how you stress the word. Okay, it's Yom HaShabbat. Okay, so dawn or daybreak. This is a time when the daytime mitzvot you can start doing them. So if you do you listen to the shofar before, and you do the mitzvah of shofar before daybreak, doesn't count. You have to do it again. Okay, so that's no, it's the same thing. I'm using that daybreak and dawn as in the same thing. Alot HaShachar. Okay, now fast days, apart from Yom Kippur and Tisha B'Av, fast days begin at Alot HaShachar, not at sunrise, at dawn. Yeah, sunrise is the after dawn. Okay, so the first halachic time of the day is Alot HaShachar, those first rays of sun. Not the rays, first rays of light, I beg your pardon. That's the next one, okay? So you have Alot HaShachar, okay? That's dawn. That's our first morning time period. That's our first station, if you like. The next one is, as Yochanan has said, when you can put on tefillin and talit. And that is a time which is known as Mi Sheyakir. Mi Sheyakir. Okay, so what does yakir mean?
Recognize.
I say to you, I need
recognize.
Recognize. Thank you, Johnny. Recognize. Makir, yakir means to recognize. Mi Sheyakir. So, halachically, the time when you're allowed to put on talis and tefillin is the time when it is light enough for you to recognize your friend from 4 amot away. Okay, some say 6, but across 4 amot, about 6 feet. Okay, so from 6 feet away, obviously without any artificial light. If it's light enough to see, I recognize you, you're Solly, from 6 feet away, then you're allowed to put your talis and tefillin on. And so that is called Mi Sheyakir. And it is, again, that is a time which is, you can look it up on the timetable. When is the earliest time for talis and tefillin? That's called Mi Sheyakir. Okay. So, yeah.
When we talk about talis, would that also include sitting?
Yes. Yes.
And is there a time before that when we can daven and start saying the brachot and then put on your talis?
You can start saying your brachot at Alot HaShachar. Okay, you can start saying brachot at Alot HaShachar when it's dawn. But talit and tefillin, you have to wait that bit of time until Mi Sheyakir. Okay? Now, the next one, where we're going through the day now. So you've got dawn. Then you've got Misha Yakir, when you can, it's a little bit lighter than dawn. And then you've got sunrise, which is called, or it's to give it its full name, Hanetz Hachama. Hanetz Hachama. Hachama, what does the word cham mean? Hot. So what's the chama? Hachama. The thing that gives you heat. What's the thing that gives you heat? The sun. It's another word for shemesh. So chama is another word for sun. We have shemesh and we have hachama. Okay, so hanetz hachama. Netz means to the literally it means the rays, I suppose. The sort of rays, I guess. Hanetz hachama is sunrise. That is the time when the top of the sun, as opposed to its light. So at dawn, you've got the sunlight, but you can't see the sun. Okay. Sunrise, Hanetz Hachama, is that time when the sun just peeps over the horizon, right? You can just see the top of the dome. That's called Hanetz Hachama. Now, that is the earliest time. They did it all with, I don't know how they did it with. They did it with working it out with slide rules and all that stuff. No, because you couldn't see the sun. Yeah. So you've got this Hanetz Hachama, which is sunrise. Okay, sunrise, when the top edge of the sun's disk comes into view at sea level. Now, this is the earliest time that you can say the Tefilah, meaning the Amidah. Okay, Shmona Esra. So when people go to daven at the Netz minyan, they don't start davening at Netz. What they do is they start davening earlier. They work out how long they know how long it's going to take them to get to Shmona Esra. Let's say that they know it's going to take them 14 minutes to get to Shmona Esra. Netz is 14 minutes past 6, let's say. So they will start davening at 6 o'clock. And on the bima there will be a clock. And I've been to Netz minyanim. And you have to get, and if you are going too fast and you can see you're going to get to the Amidah before Netz, you have to slow down. And if you're going too slow, you have to speed up, because you've got to get to Netz, to the Amidah at Netz. Why? Because the ideal, I think Yochanan said this a minute or two ago, the ideal time to do any mitzvah is what you said earlier on, as soon as possible. Okay, there's a concept of zrizim makdimim the mitzvot. People who are keen and eager, zrizim. If you're eager to do a mitzvah, you do it at the first opportunity. Okay, you don't put it off. So to daven Shmona Esra, the first opportunity you can do it is at Netz. So people who are very particular, they like to get to Shmona Esra bang on Netz. And so they're demonstrating that they love this mitzvah of saying the Shmona Esra so much that they're doing it at the very, very first opportunity. That's the concept of davening at Netz. Okay, so you start your shacharis before in order to get to Shmona Esra at Netz. Now, what is the earliest time you can say Shema? The earliest time you can say Shema is again Misha Yakir. Same time Talis and Tefillin. That's the earliest time for Shema. So you will often see on some of the luchot, you'll say earliest time for Talis, Tefillin, and Shema. That's Misha Yakir. Now, we have a mitzvah dioraita, a Torah law to say Shema when? Morning and evening, yeah? Uva shochbacha, uva kumecha. We've been through all that. When you lie down and when you get up, nighttime and evening, nighttime and morning time. So morning time, understandable. You can only say that when it's morning. When is it morning? It's morning from Misha Yakir, when you can recognize your friend at 4 Amot. But when does the morning end? You have to say it before a certain time is over. That's right. So that's the next question. How long have you got to say Shema? Now, you could argue. Yeah, sorry, Paul, you want to say something?
No.
Oh, okay. So you've got to start. You cannot start saying your Shema until Misha Yakir, until it's light enough for you to recognize your friend. You put your talis and tefillin on. You'll end up saying Shema a little bit after Misha Yakir because it takes you a few minutes to put your talis and tefillin on, right? So you're not going to say your Shema until you put your talis in. So let's say it takes you 2 or 3 minutes to put your talis and tefillin on. You're going to say Shema from a couple of minutes after Misha Yakir. Now you will often hear announced. We don't do it here, but you'll hear announced that the latest time for Shema this week is 9:15 in the morning, whatever it is. Now, whatever it is, whatever, it's just an example, right? Okay.
On Friday night.
Okay, we'll come to that. Good point. We'll come to that in a minute. So, there is a time which is halachically the right time for Shema in the morning. We've already said it's a mitzvah d'oraita to say the Shema in the morning. So what constitutes the morning? From Misha Yakir until a certain portion of the day has gone. Now you might think that, and I would have thought that the time to say the morning Shema is until the end of the morning, right? You've got all morning to do it. When is the end of the morning?
Halachic midday.
After 6 hours. Okay. You would think. So that's called chatzot. Chatzot. What's from the word chetzi? Okay. Yes, לי פה. סליחה. תודה רבה. תודה. יופי. מצוין. תודה. So the morning ends at midday, right? So we're talking ordinary times in like secular times, not Hebrew times. The morning ends at midday, right? Midday, then it's afternoon, isn't it? 1 minute past 12, that's called afternoon. It's not called morning anymore. But in halacha, the morning ends after 6 halachic hours. So starting from alot hashachar, because that's when so let's say dawn is at 4 a.m. So, and let's say night time is at 8 p.m. or 16 hours. So the morning is 6 of those 1.33 hours. Okay, so it works out 6 hours plus 6 lots of a third, which is 2. That's 8 hours. So it actually works out in our example as 12 noon, which is not what I wanted that example to be. But it's 6 halachic hours is chatzot. Now you would have thought, wouldn't you, that it would be okay to say the Shema all the way up to chatzot, which is true, but only b'diavad. Okay, only after the event. Lechatchila, in other words, the correct time to say Shema is half of that time. The idea being that you are meant to say it at the beginning of the morning. Zrizim, makdimim, lemitzvot. We have to do the mitzvah. We don't leave the mitzvah to the last minute. We want to do it as soon as possible. So the correct time, the latest, when somebody says the latest time for Kriyat Shema, they're not actually telling you the truth, because the latest time for Kriyat Shema is at Chatzot. But they announce it, the latest time for the correct time to say the Shema is after 3 halachic hours. So a quarter of the day, when a quarter of the day has gone. So from Alot HaShachar. Yeah. So in our example, Alot HaShachar is at 4 o'clock, and at 8 o'clock in the evening is nightfall. So we've got 16 hours. So each halachic hour is 1.33 hours. After 3 hours, 3 halachic hours, we've gone through 4 regular hours. Yeah, 1.33 times 3 is 4. From Alot HaShachar at 4 o'clock. In our example, the correct last time for Shema is at 8 o'clock. 4 hours after Alot HaShachar, 4 secular hours, or 3 halachic hours in our example. So the correct time, the latest time for Shema is after 3 halachic hours after daybreak. Okay. Now, this time of the year here, daybreak is about What's daybreak here? Must be about 4:46. And what time is Tzeit HaKochavim? Nightfall. The earliest time you've got there. 7:53. Yeah, okay, well, let's go with 7:53. So 4:40?
4:40.
Okay, so today, according to the times that we've got here, Alot HaShachar is at 4:40 a.m. Okay? Now, to 7, let's call it 7:40 rather than 7:53 because it's too difficult to work out with different minutes. So 4:40 to 7:40 is 15 hours. Okay? So 15 hours divided by 12 is... divided by 4, you're right. So divided by 12, then times it by 3. So it's what? 3.75. So 3.75 regular hours after 4:40. Okay, so 4:40, 7:40, and then 3/4 of an hour, 7:40, be about 8:30. So nowadays, the last time for Kriyat Shema should be, what's it say on your list? 8:45. Okay, so I was rounding things up. 8:30, 8:45. So you can see that the last time for Kriyat Shema is after 3 halachic hours after the start of the day. G and BT. It will be MA is Magen Avraham. G will probably be the Gra, and BT will be no, not British Telecom. It will be Rabbeinu Tam probably. Okay, so there's just different ways of working it out. So now, okay, so the count is like this. Today, Alot HaShachar began at 4:40. Nightfall is, let's say, 7:40. So that's 15 hours. A halachic hour is a 12th of that, so it's 1 point something hours. Okay, three of those, let's say, makes it 3.75, just under 3.75. Frank worked out for us. So 4:40 plus 3 3/4 hours takes us to about 8:30, 8:40, something like that. And so that is how you work out. That is the last time for Kriyat Shema. Now, I said to you that b'diavad, after the event, you've got up to Chatzot. And that's true because it's still the morning. Up to Chatzot, which is after 6 halachic hours, that's midday halachically, you can still say the Shema, but it's not as good as saying it in the first 3 hours.
You wake up late or you
missed it. You forgot. You woke up late. Something happened. You can still say it. If you say, it's 8:50, I've missed the time, I can't say it. No, you've got till Chatzot to say it. If you get to as far as Chatzot and you haven't said it, then you've lost the opportunity to say that morning. For Shema. No, brachot of Shema you can do before. It's Shema itself. Okay? So, now.
We say the early Shema. Is that a reason for that? The early Shema, is that what somebody just asked you? About the early Shema?
No, Yochanan asked me whether this applies to the brachot of Shema. So, from Baruch Hu, the brachot, Yotzeh HaMa'orot and Ahava Rabbah.
No, I'm talking about the Shema we say after brachot.
No, that's there in case you might miss the time. So that's a good point, that Johnny. I mentioned that's a good point. We have a Shema, don't we? Right at the beginning, after we've said brachot, and before we get to Rabbi Yishmael Omer, we say Leficha blah 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 blah. Pamayim bi'ahava Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. That Shema is there for you to say the whole of Shema. If you work out, I'm running late today. If by the time I get to the real Shema, I'm going to be over the time. So then you would say your Shema there. Okay? That's a good point.
Already before Baruch Amar, they're saying already the Shema, the moment we say it's the short version that's called it, and the complete Shema be the same?
Yeah, because and this particular, and Jeff mentioned this before, this particularly is relevant on Shabbos, because on Shabbos we start later, davening takes longer, and it's quite often the case that by the time we get to Shema, right? For example, here on Shabbat, we begin in the summer. We begin davening at 8:30. We've already said that the last time for Shema is 8:40. We don't get to Shema till 8:50, 8:55. So we should be saying Shema either at home or when we get to the first bit, the first Shema, we should say the whole of the paragraph at this time of the year. Later on, when we go back to davening a bit earlier, then it's different.
Beyond the point of the Shema, that line, we start at
Rabbi Shmuel, yes. So you meant to have said that before. Meant to have said it, including the Shema. Okay. So where have we got to? So that's the latest time for Shema. Okay. Now that's 3 hours into the day. The next stopping point is 4 hours into the day. So a third of the day. And that is the last time that you can say Shemona Esra. We've said that the ideal time to say Shemona Esra is sunrise, Hanetzach Hama. But you can say Shemona Esra up to the end of the 4th halachic hour. And again, b'diavad, if you miss that, you've got until chatzot, until halfway through the day. Okay, halfway through the halachic day. So let's just recap what we've said so far. Alot HaShachar is dawn or daybreak. Mishi Yakir is a little bit after that, when you can see somebody at 4 cubits. Then you've got Hanetzach Hama, sunrise. That's when the sun peeps over the horizon. Then you've got the last time for Kriyat Shema after 3 halachic hours. And then you've got the last time for Shemona Esra, which is after 4 halachic hours. That's where we've
observation is quite a long period between dawn and sunrise. At the moment, it's about an hour and a quarter.
Yeah, well, I think that depends on where you are in the world. Yeah. Obviously, yeah. Here at this time of the year, it is quite long. In the winter, it's much shorter. Okay. So then we get to the next station in the day, Chatzot, halfway through the day. That is the halfway point between sunrise and sunset. Okay, that's the halfway point. That is called Chatzot. Now, if you have somebody who's on a fast day and you can't fast the whole day, then you should try and fast at least till Chatzot, which is half the day. Now you understand why you fast at Chatzot. Okay, now we're in the afternoon now. We've reached Chatzot. So a minute after Chatzot is the afternoon, right? Because 12 halachic hours, we've done 6. We're on the second half of the day. That's the afternoon. So you would think, wouldn't you, that you could start davening mincha at 1 minute past Chatzot, but you can't. The earliest time for mincha is called, and this really always used to confuse me, it's called mincha gedolah, the great mincha, right? And the opposite of mincha gedolah is mincha ktana. We'll come to that in a minute. And I always used to get these mixed up because mincha gedolah is the earlier time and mincha ktana is the later time, which is a little bit counterintuitive. But anyway, it is. Mincha gedolah is the earliest time you can say mincha, and that is half an hour, that's half a halachic hour, after Chatzot. So if Chatzot is at 12:30 and a halachic hour is 70 minutes, so 12:30 plus 35 minutes, 1:05 will be mincha gedolah. You can start to daven mincha. When is it relevant? It's relevant, for example, on Erev Yom Kippur, where we daven mincha early, right? We daven mincha early on Erev Yom Kippur so that we can go back and eat and then come to shul for Kol Nidrei, having already daven mincha. You can't daven mincha before mincha gedolah, half an hour after Chatzot. Now, mincha ktana is the latest time, well, no, that's not true. Is the ideal time for saying mincha is at mincha ktana, and that is 2.5 halachic hours before the end of the day, before sunset. Okay.
What does plaga mincha mean, Johnny?
Shkiat hachama means nightfall. Sunset is shkiat hachama, and we'll come to that area between because it's a twilight zone. Okay. So
Johnny, what does what does plaga mincha mean then?
Coming to that next. Plaga mincha's next.
Oh, okay.
So we've got 3 minchas. Mincha gedola, half an hour after chatzot. Mincha ktana, 2.5 halachic hours before the end of the day. The ramifications of that are to do with eating a meal on Shabbos and Yom Tov, the third meal, etc. And then you've got plag hamincha. Plag. What's the word plag mean? What's the word poleg mean?
Highest.
No, that's the Ramat bit.
Oh, sorry. A river Poleg.
No, there is a river Poleg. What does the river Poleg do?
It flows.
It flows.
Yeah.
It also splits. Poleg means split. Okay.
Right.
So we have in the Gemara, Johnny, remember, palga means disagreement. Because
division.
they're split. So plag, the word plag means half or split. Plag hamincha is halfway from mincha ktana to the end of the day. So we said there's 2.5 hours from mincha ktana to the end of the day. So plag hamincha is 1.25 hours before the end of the day. Got it?
Right.
Now, what's the relevance of plag hamincha? Plag hamincha is the earliest time that you can bring in nightfall. Like in England, when Shabbos officially comes in at 10:30 at night, it's too late. So you can bring Shabbos in. You can light the Shabbos lights and bring Shabbos in. You can't bring it in on Tuesday afternoon or even Friday morning. You can only bring it in from plag hamincha onwards. So let's say nightfall is 10 o'clock. Let's say nightfall is 10 o'clock. Let's take England and Manchester particularly as an example, which is in the north. Gateshead and Scotland's even worse. But let's say in the summer, the beginning of the day, Alot HaShachar is 3 a.m. It's actually sometimes before that even. 3 a.m., let's say. And let's say nightfall is 10 p.m. So how many hours is that? 19 hours divided by 12, okay, is quite a lot. It's 1.75 hours, 1 hour and 3/4. And then, so that's a halachic hour. So 1.25 of those is going to be about 2.25 hours. Yeah, 1.25 halachic hours in the middle of the summer in England, where you've got long halachic hours because you've got a lot of daylight. So you can bring Shabbat in 1.25 halachic hours, which is about 2.5 ordinary hours, 2.25 ordinary hours, before the official time of Shabbat. The official time of Shabbat is 10. You can bring Shabbat in at 7:45. And that's what we do in Manchester during the summer. We bring Shabbat in at 7:45 because that is when Plag HaMincha is. You can't bring it in before that. You want to bring it in at 7:30? You can't, because it's before Plag HaMincha. Plag HaMincha is the earliest time you can bring in Shabbat. Okay?
What are you doing up in Norway and
Big problems. Solly asked, what do you do in Norway? And when Shabbat comes in March and goes out in November, right? So what do? You estimate. You either go by Eretz Yisrael time, or you go by the nearest sensible place. But it's a big problem. Halachic times in those areas where it's never dark, it is a halachic problem. The real answer to your question, Solly, is you don't go and live there. That's true. Right. So that now is we're nearly there now. So we've got to Plag HaMincha, and now the next journey during the day is Shkia. Shkia is sunset. So that is when the sun has completely gone beyond the horizon. Remember, we said, yeah, but it's on sea level, at sea level.
Yeah, sea level. You look at it, you think it's disappeared.
Okay, well, they've worked it out for you. You don't need to watch it. Okay, so but it's that time when it's gone. Okay, we said that sunrise was when it peaked up. Sunset is when it's completely gone underneath the horizon. It's not dark yet. You've still got that beautiful red sky, and you can still see, but the sun has gone. That is called shkia. Now, Seit HaKochavim, which means Seit, going out, the same word as Yitziat Mitzrayim, going out, Kochavim, the stars. When the stars come out, when you can see 3 medium-sized stars, that is officially nighttime. Seit HaKochavim. There's various different opinions on when that is, and that's where you've got the Magen Avrahams time, and you've got Rabbeinu Tam's time, and all sorts of different things. But as far as we're concerned, nightfall is when you can see 3 stars. Okay. So, coming to that. So, the 3 stars coming out is nightfall. So we've got a time period, haven't we, between sunset and nightfall, right? Here it's not that long. It's about 20, 40 minutes, 30 minutes, something like that. In other places further north, it's longer. And that is called twilight in English. Between sunset and nightfall is called twilight. In Hebrew, it's called Bein Hashmashot. Bein Hashmashot. What's that mean? Bein, between. Shmashot. What's the singular of shmashot?
Shemesh.
Shemesh. Between the suns. In other words, it's that time when, and the problem with Bein Hashmashot, this twilight zone between Shkia and nightfall, is we are not sure whether it's day or it's night. Halachically, we're not sure. It's a safek. So, for instance, today's what? Monday? So today is Monday. So before Shkia tonight, before sunset, it was definitely Monday. After nightfall, it's definitely Tuesday, because the day begins at nightfall. Between sunset and nightfall, we don't know whether it's Monday or Tuesday, because halachically, we're not sure exactly when one day ends and the other day begins. But we don't really know what that means. We don't know. We do know that before Shkia, it's definitely day. And we do know that after Seit Kochavim, it's definitely night. But what about that hour in between, that 40 minutes, whatever it is in between? We don't know. Jeff mentioned weddings. It's a big problem, because if you have a legal document with a date on it and the date is wrong, that legal document is invalid. Okay. If you sign a document and the date is wrong, it's not a legal document. When you sign a ketubah and when you do a kinyan on a ketubah, you have to have the right date. So if you write your ketubah on Monday and you say here in Poleg, Bayom, Sheni, on Monday, the okay. Correct. So if you write Monday, then it has to be executed before sunset. And if you write Tuesday, it has to be executed after nightfall. The problem comes when you've written the ketubah for Monday and things don't go to plan and you're running late and the chuppah does not take place until after sunset. There is a problem. There's a halachic problem. There is a question as to whether that ketubah is valid. And if you don't have a valid ketubah, you've got a problem. So it's very important that when you see a thing that says the chuppah will be such and such a time prompt, if that such and such a time is before sunset, then you need to get there on time. If, however, it says the chuppah will be at 7:30 prompt, and you know that actually sunset is 7 o'clock and nightfall is 8 o'clock, you know that chuppah is not going to be until after 8 o'clock, because it can't be at 7:30, because that is bein hashmashot, and they can't do a chuppah bein hashmashot. Also, for other legal documents, a get, Brit Milah, you cannot do before the time. You can't do Brit Milah either at bein hashmashot. You have to do Brit Milah before Shkia.
When the baby is born.
No. Yeah. Oh, I see what you mean. Yes. When the baby is born. Frank is right. I thought you meant when we do it.
No.
First of all, when we do a Brit, you can't do a Brit bein hashmashot, because you can't do a Brit at night. We already said that, because you've got to do a Brit by Yom Hashmini on the 8th day, right? So let's say today was the 8th day, Tuesday was the 8th day. You can't do it Monday night because it's night. You can't also do it Tuesday after sunset, because we're not sure whether that's still the day. You can only do a Brit between Alot HaShachar and sunset and Shkia. You've got to do a Brit at that time. Now, what Frank was talking about is when a baby is born. If a baby is born, bein hashmashot, so a baby is born between sunset and nightfall, what day is he born on? What day is he born on? So let's say a baby is born on Friday, after Shabbos comes in, after sunset, but before nightfall. So it's still light. It's bein hashmashot. Well, is that baby born on Friday, or is that baby born on Shabbos? If he's born on Friday, then you have to do the bris on Friday. And you're not allowed to do the bris on Shabbos, because you're only allowed to do a bris on Shabbos if it's the 8th day. Now, if it's Shabbos, then you can't do it on Friday, because that's the 7th day. But it might not be Shabbos, it might be Friday, so you can't do it on Shabbos either. So a baby born bein hashmashot on Friday afternoon has his brit when? Sunday.
Right.
Sunday. And if it happens to be a 2-day Yom Tov, it has it on Monday. So you can have a baby. So it's a good trick question. That's considered to be the earliest time. It's not 8 days, but it's the earliest time you can do it, because we don't know when the 8th day is. And the 8th day might be Shabbos, but it might not. And you're only allowed to do a bris on Shabbos. So
what do you do if you have triplet boys, Johnny? Johnny?
Well, 8.5. Yeah. So, that's right. So
Johnny, you could have triplet boys with 3 brisses on 3 different days.
You could actually. Yeah.
2 different days, not 3.
No, there is a way you could have 3. A baby born, the triplets. The first one's born Friday afternoon before Shkia. His bris is Friday.
Yeah.
The one that's born bein hashmashot, he's going to have his bris on Sunday. The one that's born after Tzeta Kochavim on Shabbat, on Friday night, he has his bris on Shabbos. So the younger one has his bris before the second one, in Johnny's example. So that's a great example, Johnny. You've got 3 babies born, 3 triplets born. The first one has it born on Friday, brist on Friday. The second one is born bein hashmashot Friday to Shabbos. He has his bris on Sunday. The third one's born on Shabbos itself, and he has his bris on Shabbos. That's a great trick question. Right. So we have now got 5 minutes left. 5 minutes left to talk about the David Hashem Ori. I don't think we should do it. I think that we should leave it till next week, because it's a subject all on its own. So I'll use the last 5 minutes to tell you about the final zman, the final time of our journey through the day, and that's when Shabbos is out.
In the evening, Johnny, can you just go back to Ma'ariv though? When can you say Shema? That's the.
Oh, okay. When can you say Shema?
That's
so you can say Shema. The earliest time for Shema, the b'diavad, the earliest time for Shema is at Plag HaMincha, because you can daven Ma'ariv at Plag HaMincha. But then you're meant to go back after nightfall and say Shema again, okay? But without a bracha.
Yeah.
Counting the element is at night. If you forgot to do it at tomorrow or whenever, up until when can you do it? Because that goes until.
Okay. Jeff's question is Sfirat HaOmer. You're meant to do that at night after Ma'ariv, as soon as nightfall comes. But we all know that if you forget, you've got all day to do it. So when does the day end? Sunset. Shkia. So if you forget Sfirat HaOmer at night, you've got all day to say it without a bracha, and then you can carry on saying it with a bracha afterwards. Yes, up to Chatzot. Up to Chatzot Halayla, up to the midnight. Yes. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So just finally, the times for Shabbos going out. You'll see if you look in the calendar that at nightfall, Tzeta Kochavim is not the time when Shabbos goes out. Shabbos went out this week at 8:08. Okay, I just remember it because I had to announce it, so I just happened to remember it was 8:08. Now, Jeff told us earlier on that Tzeta Kochavim was 7:53 or something today, didn't you? 8:04. Okay, but there's an earlier time than that. Okay, so what you got? Right, so Frank says 7:53. We're going with Frank. 7:53 is nightfall. So how come Shabbos is not out until 8:08? That's something called Tosefet Shabbat. What's Tosefet?
To increase the length of the Shabbat.
Barbara, where do you see that word? Tosefet.
In a menu, extras.
In a menu, correct. In a menu, those are the extras. Yeah, the Tosefets, your chips on the side or your salad or whatever it is you're going to have. That's Tosefet, the extras. So Tosefet Shabbat.
To make Shabbos longer.
The extra bit. We put on a Tosefet Shabbat at the beginning, right? We light the candles. We don't light the candles at Shkia, do we? We light the candles a bit before Shkia, which is why you've got that 18-minute leeway if you're running a bit late and, you've got that 18 minutes, which some of us use more often than others, and you've got that 18 minutes. The same after Shabbat. Shabbat officially ends at nightfall, but we add on. Why do we add on to Shabbat? Because Shabbat is beloved to us, and we want them to stay. Shabbat is our Shabbat HaMalkah. We want them to stay a little bit longer. We don't want them to go, so we add on 18 minutes. Rabbeinu Tam adds on further, even more. So if you go to Sands, if you go up to Lanyardo Hospital, if you're unlucky enough to be in hospital over Shabbat, I got in trouble with this once. I didn't know it. I didn't know it. I was one of my kids was in hospital with appendicitis, and I went to visit them on Shabbat. I knew Shabbat was out at whatever it was, let's say 8 o'clock. 8:05, I'm on my phone. And I get in trouble. The Arab guard comes along and says to me, Shabbat, you can't do it. And I'm saying, what are you talking about? Shabbat's out. But no, they go by Rabbeinu Tam's time there, which is about another half an hour on. And so you can't use your phone then. Jerusalem has another time as well. They have a Yerushalmi time. But the basic things that we need to know is there is a Tosefet Shabbat, which is about 18 minutes. So we've done a whiz through the Zmanim today. I didn't think it would take us that long. I don't know why I didn't think it would take us that long, because everything always takes us a long time when I do it. But we will try, please God, next week to go through the David Hashem Ori. So let's just, before Barbara asks her question, let me just whiz through the times again from the beginning of the day. Alot HaShachar, daybreak, the first time you can do a daytime mitzvah. Next is Mishi Yakir, when you can put Talis Tefillin on and say Shema. Next is Hanetza Chama, sunrise, when you can say Shmona Esra. Next, after that, is the end of the Shema time, 3 halachic hours into the day. Next is the end time for the Amidah, 4 hours into the halachic day. Next is Chatzot, halfway through the day. Next is Mincha Gdola, half an hour after Chatzot, you can start to say Mincha. Then you've got Mincha Ktana, 2.5 halachic hours before the end of the day is said to be the ideal time to say Mincha. Then you've got Plaga Mincha, halfway between Mincha Ktana and the end of the day. And that's the earliest time that you can bring in Shabbat. You can say Mariv at that time if you have to, because the day is very long, for example, in northern places. Then after that, you've got Shkia, which is sunset, when the sun goes below the horizon. After that, you've got this period of Bein Hashmashot, this twilight zone that we're not sure what it is, day or night, and it's a halachic problem. And then you've got Tzeit Kochavim, nightfall, when the 3 stars come out, and then you've got Tosefet Shabbat, the extra bit that we add on to Shabbat. That is a sort of whiz through the halachic day with the Zmanim. And now when you hear somebody say, what's the latest time for Shema, you know what they're talking about. Yes, Barbara?
Do these times apply to women also?
What do you think?
What's happening in the morning, for example?
What do you think?
Probably yes.
Well, by definition, any mitzvah which is time bound, women are not obligated. Doesn't mean they shouldn't do it. It means they're not obligated to.
Mitzvah says the man garama.
Mitzvah taseh shezman garama. Positive commandment that is time bound. So by definition, any of these time bound mitzvot, women are not obligated by. That's not to say that they shouldn't do it. That's not to say that they shouldn't daven. And if they daven, obviously it's best to do it at the right time. But it's not, as it were, an obligation as it is on men, because women have been released, exempted from time-bound mitzvot. And anybody who has looked after a child will tell you that there is jolly good reason why women are exempted from time-bound reasons, because their time is not their own, because children, babies in particular, do not know what time it is when they wake up and want feeding and changing and all those things that, generally speaking, women do. So it's a practical thing apart from anything else. So the answer to your question...
Sorry to interrupt. We have many years when we're not doing that as well. So
yeah, but once you're exempt, you're exempt. How are you going to do it? You're only exempt if you've got a kid under such and such. What if you're a caregiver? What if all sorts of things? You know, there can't be. That's why it's not an obligation. Doesn't mean you can't do it. It's the same with talis and tefillin. Women want to wear talis and tefillin. They're allowed to. It's not the done thing today, but it was at one time. The women, the Rashi's daughter, we know famously wore tefillin. You know, as long as you're not doing it just to wave the flag for, you know, for women's equal rights, and you're just using it as a stick to beat the men with, absolutely no reason that a woman should not do a mitzvah which is time bound. They're just not obligated to do so.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Warren.
I'm only saying this because I'm not in striking distance from you. You'll probably hit me. It's a shame they haven't brought in times when services should end, not like when they start.
It's not the time when services should end. Well, that's another question. That's another question. That you need to address to the chazan, not to me.
You're the governor.
I'm the gaffer.
Davening married, but there's somewhere else that davening.
Yeah, so Jeff says he's been in places where these will be Hasidic places where they're davening mincha in one room and Mariv in another room. How is that possible? Well, it is possible because you can daven Mariv from Plaga Mincha onwards, and you can still daven mincha right up to Shkia. So there is an overlap time when you can. What's more interesting, and I don't know how you explain this, is you find some people davening mincha and some people davening shachris at the same time, which is not actually possible, because you can't be davening shachris after mincha gedolah, and you can't start mincha until after. But it happens. You go to places where, you know, you see folk there with where they're talis and tefillin and saying shachris, and you've turned up for a mincha, for a minyan for mincha. Some people do that. That's right. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Right. Sorry we never got to the David Hashem Ori. Those of you who came or have listened to this on the recording for a whole hour expecting to hear something about the David Hashem Ori, I will give you your money back. You can ask for a refund. Okay. Please, God, we'll do it next week.
Oh, next week.
Where will you be next week?
Virginia Beach.
Okay. Well, enjoy. Enjoy. Safe trip. Come back safely too. All the best.
Thank you.